Hey guys, Andrew Steinmetz here, QA/QC manager with Genco Inc. Coming to you with a new video today on box fill. That's going to be 314.16, number of conductors in outlet, devices, and junction boxes and conduit bodies. The reason I chose this one is that it can be very simple to figure out, but I feel a lot of times in the field, a lot of things are going on and these boxes get overfilled very fast with power packs, lighting, dimming wires, all that. So I just wanted to go over this code with you to make sure that we understand it and we're not running into these issues out in the field. So let's just dive into it. So 314.16. Boxes and conduit bodies shall be of an approved size to provide free space for all enclosed conductors. In no case shall the volume of the box, as calculated in 314.16a, be less than the fill calculations as calculated in 314.16b. The minimum volume for conduit bodies shall be as calculated in 314.16c. This section shall not apply to terminal housing supplied with motors or generators. Boxes and conduit bodies enclosing conductors 4 gauge or larger shall also comply with 314.28. Outlet and device boxes shall also comply with 314.24. So now that we got that all out of the way, basically it's just telling you all the different sections of this code that you need to follow. Also, box sizing is, as an example, in 314.28 when you're doing 4 gauge or larger. But let's jump into the box volume calculations. The volume of wiring enclosures, boxes, shall be the total volume of the assembled sections and, where used, the space provided by plaster rings, domed covers, extension rings, and so forth, that are marked with their volume or are made from boxes the dimensions of which are listed in table 314.16a. Where a box is provided with one or more securely installed barriers, the volume shall be apportioned to each of the resulting spaces. Each barrier, if not marked with its volume, shall be considered to take up 8.2 centimeters cubed, half-inch cubed. If metal, then it's 16.4 centimeters cubed, 1 inch cubed if non-metallic. So here we go. The standard box, number 1. The volume standard box that are not marked with their volume shall be given in table 314.16a. 2. Other boxes. Boxes 1650 centimeters cubed or 100 inches cubed or less, other than those described in table 314.16a, and non-metallic boxes shall be durably and legibly marked by the manufacturer with their volumes. Boxes described in table 314.16a that have a volume larger than is designated in the designated in the table shall be permitted to have their volume marked as required in this section. So here's what I want to go over with you. This table is available in your code book, in every code book, and this is your quick guide to box fill for the normal size boxes we work with. So if you open this table up, and we'll expand it, here you have all the standard boxes you deal with on a day-to-day basis. We have 4 square here. We have 4 11s here. We have round and octagonal boxes. We have device boxes. More device boxes with their sizing on here. Masonry boxes. We even have the single cover, the mud rings. So those, you can add these volumes in there. So let's take a look here. Right here, the typical 4 square. So here's a depth, right? So it's a 4 inch, 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 with a 2 1/8 inch depth. That's the standard 4 square box you work with. Here it is cubed with centimeters and inches. But this is all you really need to know. Here is the maximum number of conductors with all the standard sizes you work with: 18, 16 gauge, 14 gauge, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, 8 gauge, 6 gauge. So in a standard 4 square, you're allowed, we typically only work with 12 gauge minimum. You're allowed 13 number 12s in one box. Number 10s, you're allowed 12. Number 8s, you're allowed 10. Number 6s, you're allowed 6. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. I know a lot of times nowadays we're working the 411s. So here they are again. So number 12s, you're allowed 18, 16, 14, and 8. So I recommend having this table available, whether it's with the NFPA link, which I'm using here, which you can also use on your phones, or, just take a picture, a screenshot of it, and have it on your phone just so you know, or memorize it. And letter B, box fill calculations. The volumes in 314.16b1 through b6 as applicable shall be added together. No allowance shall be required for small fittings such as knockouts, bushings. Each space within the box installed with the barrier shall be calculated separately. So there are things you have to count when you're considering box fill. This is explaining that the items you don't have to count for are small fittings, lock nuts, and bushings. So you don't need to count those when you're doing your box fill calculations. Number 1, conductor fill. Each conductor that originates outside the box and terminates or is spliced within the box shall be counted once. And each conductor that passes through the box without splice or termination shall be counted once. Each loop or coil of unbroken conductor not less than twice the minimum length required for free conductor in 300.14 shall be counted twice. The conductor fill shall be calculated using 314.16b1. A conductor, no part of which leaves the box, shall not be counted. So there's a lot to dissect there. So when the conductors are spliced in the box, what you need to do is you need to count every single one of those splices. So if one wire is coming in, and let's see, I think I have an example of that here. Let me just pull that up. And let's find that one. So here we have an example of spliced. Let's take it right here. This is a good one. So through the box equals 2. So there's 1, there's 2. So you only count that as 2, right? Termination in the box. So that's these that are spliced. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this box, we have a total of 4 wires or 4 conductors that we need to count. Straight through, no loop, no anything. So that those are considered 1 each. But when you have a wire nut or you splice them in the box, you need to count every single one of them. Okay. Here's the exception. An equipment grounding conductor or conductors or not over 4 fixture wires smaller than 14 gauge or both shall be permitted to be omitted from the calculations where they enter the box from a domed luminary or similar canopy terminated within the box. So that's when you have the fixture and it has the dome covering over it. I believe I have a picture of that as well. Let's go ahead and pull that up. That's right here. Dome cover. These are not counted because of the cover here. Not more than 4 fixtures with 16 gauge or smaller can be omitted from the box fill calculations, and that's supposed to be 14 gauge. So you wouldn't count those. Clamp fill, where one or more internal cable clamps, whether factory or field supplied, are present in the box. A single volume allowance is in accordance with 314.16b1 shall be made based on the largest conductor present in the box. No allowance shall be required for the cable connector with its clamping mechanism outside the box. And I believe I have an example of that. There's the clamps right there. Each conductor originating outside the box and terminating inside the box is rated as one conductor. You're going to run into this more on the residential side, not what we deal with. So I don't think I'm going to dive into that too much today. Support fitting fill. Where one or more luminary stud or hickey are present in the box, a single volume allowance is in accordance with 314 shall be made for each type of fitting based on the largest conductor present in the box. So that you will run into. So let me show you that. So here's the fixture stud. So that's what we use to support the fixtures. It's inside the box. So whatever your largest conductor is inside that box, you're going to count this stud as one of those. So if you have a bunch of 12s, but then you have also a number 10 in there, then you count this as a number 10 in your calculations. And so on. So that this stud needs to be counted as one of the conductors. Device or equipment fill. For each yoke or strap containing one or more devices or equipment, a double volume allowance in accordance with 314.16b1 shall be made for each yoke or strap based on the largest conductor size connected to the device or equipment supported by the yoke or strap. A device utilization equipment wider than single 50 millimeters, 2 inches device box as described in table 314.16 shall have double the volume allowance provided for each gang required in mounting. So I have an example of that as well. So here we have yokes. Right here, these are what's considered a yoke, right? Right here, these are yokes. Each one of these is considered 2 of the largest conductor size that is connected to these devices. So each one of these, you have to have a number 2 with that, 2 conductors. So you would count these as 2. And I believe I have another example of that right here. And then, so these larger devices here, these are not single gang yokes. These actually are considered 4. So when you have a yoke or a device that's larger like this one, the yoke is 4 conductors. Total of 8 conductors in this box. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, plus you got to count this as 4. Yoke is 4 conductors, total of 7 conductors. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. The reason you're not counting this one is because it's a bond. So you don't have to count that one. So you're just counting these 3 here. There's no ground coming into here. So that's how that goes right there. And there's another table for that. And that's right here. Volume allowance required per conductor. Equipment grounding conductor fill. Where up to 4 equipment grounding conductors enter a box, a single volume allowance in accordance with table 314.16b1 shall be made based on the largest equipment grounding conductor entering the box. A 1/4 volume allowance shall be made for each additional equipment grounding conductor that enters the box based on the largest equipment grounding conductor entering the box. So what that means is that the grounds entering the box, the ground wires entering the box. So let's see if I have an example of that here. I believe I do. Let's see. So right here, this one right here. So one or more equipment grounding conductors counted as one conductor. So we got 1, 2, 3. These are all counted as one because these are grounding conductors. So you'd only have to count that as one. If you have an isolated equipment grounding conductor, it counts as an additional conductor. So if you have it isolated, this one by itself is considered one. These together are considered one. So you have a little bit of an allowance when it comes to grounding wires. Bonding wire, if it originates in the box, you don't have to count. But if you have grounding wires come in, you're allowed up to 4. Otherwise, you do need to do volume calculations with that on each additional one after 4.